So, way back in 1984, a franchise was born. A franchise that involves time travel, robots, and a family called the Connors. This video is a look back at the entire Terminator series before the new one, Dark Fate, comes out and adds to the mess of what used to just be a good couple of movies. And yes, spoilers, fuck you. Also, I'm not going to talk about the Sarah Connor Chronicles. It's a TV show, and it's a different timeline, so it doesn't count. We're talking about movies here. Let's go. The Terminator. This is the movie that started it all. You got young, dumb, helpless Sarah Connor, 80s. She's just a young, happy waitress with her whole life ahead of her. Out of nowhere, she's being attacked by Arnold fucking Schwarzenegger. And some dude that looks like a bum, Kyle Reese, shows up to protect her from Arnold. He tells her about the future and how the world's been taken over by robots, and her future son, John, is the leader of the resistance against the robots. And somehow, it's not really addressed, the robots have figured out time travel, so they sent back a Terminator, a T-800, to kill Sarah Connor, so the humans sent back Kyle Reese to protect her. This movie is a very unique mix of horror, sci-fi, action, and they also sprinkle a little bit of a love story in there too. I mean, these two main characters meet, fuck, and conceive the savior of the future within 48 hours. If that's not true love, I don't know what is. If you're rewatching this movie or watching it for the first time, you might notice that the music is 80s as fuck. You might say it's a little bit dated. After some chase scenes and some fighting and some action, Kyle and Sarah manage to lead the Terminator to a factory, which seems to happen on all the movies, and Kyle manages to blow up the Terminator. Side note, how fucking cool does the Terminator look without skin? The exoskeleton looks awesome. Kyle then dies in the explosion, and he only blew up half of the Terminator, so the other half of the Terminator, the top half, and Sarah is left to kill the T-800 by herself. Then we wrap up this movie with Sarah Connor traveling down to Mexico, and she's pregnant with the savior of the future, John Connor, and she's talking into these cassette tapes and just leaving future messages to teach her son about the crazy future, and every movie after this refers to those fucking tapes. That's the end of The Terminator, and this leads us into one of the greatest movies of all time, T2 Judgment Day. Not only is this one of the best sequels of all time, this is probably the best action movie ever made. If you want to argue that point, go watch Terminator 2 and proceed to shut the fuck up. Right off the bat, this movie just hits the ground running. It establishes the Terminators. You got Arnold, who's good, Robert Patrick, who's bad, he's a T-1000, a Terminator that's composed of liquid metal that can shapeshift into anything that it touches. It does a very good job of establishing John Connor, who's a teenager now, and then they introduce the complete 180 transformation of Sarah Connor. They managed to transform Sarah Connor from the first one, who was completely helpless, into one of the most badass characters of all time. After they set up these characters in the beginning of the movie, the rest of the movie is pure entertainment. This movie also introduces the idea of Judgment Day. Judgment Day is the day that machines take over the entire world and kill 3 billion people. So this movie establishes that not only are we protecting John Connor from the T-1000, we're also trying to prevent Judgment Day. So we've taken what we know from Terminator 1, and we build the plot by raising the stakes and adding more characters. And these things, which are handled very well, create the perfect sequel. Somehow amongst all this action, they managed to establish relationships between all these characters out of the need to survive. It's awesome! Anyway, John survives, they manage to melt the T-1000 in another factory, and Arnold sacrifices himself to prevent Judgment Day. The scene where Arnold Schwarzenegger sacrifices himself, I was 6 years old. I didn't understand self-sacrifice, I didn't know why Arnold was killing himself. I bawled my fucking eyes out.
I'm sorry.
No, it'll be okay, stay with us, it'll be okay.
I have to go away.
No, don't do it, please, don't go.
It has to end here. Goodbye.
Also, T2 happens to have the best face push of all time. This is where things start to take a turn for the worse. Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. When I was watching this movie right off the bat, I noticed that the tone is completely different than the first two, and the CG is total shit. And maybe that looked good in 2003, but here it's just... it's just noticeably bad, you know? Arnold Schwarzenegger's back to be the robot that protects in this movie, but they use his character as comic relief, and that's very disappointing. This movie also jumps right into it. John Connor is in his 20s now. He starts his monologue. He's off the grid. Blah, 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 blah. The bad Terminator shows up with an agenda to kill John, amongst other people. And in this movie, she's a hot lady, which they also use as comic relief. Arnold shows up to protect everybody. The chase ensues. They do a very poor job with John Connor in this movie. They use a different actor, first off. And secondly, he's a total moron. He doesn't use his brain, like, at all. He's just not a survivor. If the hot lady Terminator really wanted to kill him, it'd be pretty easy. Because he's stupid! The other major character that they introduce in this movie is Catherine Brewster, who happens to be John Connor's future wife, and second in command to the future human army. Arnold's mission in this movie is a little different. It's not just to protect these two, but it's to get them to safety to survive Judgment Day, because, surprise, you can't prevent Judgment Day. So naturally, they don't listen to this, and they try to prevent Judgment Day anyway, and Arnold has to trick them into going into an underground bunker. Arnold sacrifices himself again, also killing the hot lady Terminator, and Catherine and John survive while all the world's nukes blow up 3 billion people. I think this movie really suffers from its writing and directing. This movie tries so hard to be funny, and I just don't think it works. Terminator movies aren't supposed to be funny.
Hey! Hey! Are you gonna pay for that?
Talk to the hand.
The movie also kills Sarah Connor off-screen with cancer. Lame. They also try to introduce the idea of fate making these events happen, like a spiritual fate. Yeah. The entire message of every Terminator movie that they just cram into your brain is, there is no fate but what we make for ourselves. And this movie decides to fuck with that.
No.
Next movie, Terminator Salvation. Since this movie was released, it's gotten a lot of hate, and I don't know why. Sure, this movie was directed by Mick G, who's not the best director ever. And yeah, sure, Christian Bale had a little bit of an on-set meltdown.
Oh, good for you! And how was it? I hope it was fucking good, because it's useless now, isn't it?
But when you look at this movie as a whole and how it fits into the franchise, I think it's pretty good. Let's put it this way, they try something different, and I really think that they succeed at that. It's not, hey, we're in the past, running from a Terminator in the future. It's, hey, we're in the future, kicking Terminator ass. This movie takes place in the future, and the story goes that the Resistance is trying to destroy a Skynet base. The main character is actually a Terminator-human hybrid. That's new. He thinks he's human, but he finds out near the end that he's a one-of-a-kind Terminator infiltration unit designed to bring John Connor to Skynet. And guess what? He does just that. It's a plot twist! The action is sweet, the directing is good, and the casting is great. Unlike in Terminator 3, Christian Bale is a believable John Connor. You believe that he could lead the Resistance against the robots, and he's also a badass motherfucker. They also have a young Kyle Reese in this movie. The story ties in really well with the Terminator mythology in the first two movies, and I dig it. I'd say this, if you took out Terminator 3 and ended the franchise with Terminator Salvation, it'd be a really solid trilogy. Unfortunately, they went ahead and they made Terminator Genisys. Genisys with a Y. This movie is total fucking bullshit. It's by far the worst in the whole series. I'm gonna fucking lose it here. I watched 5 Terminator movies in 3 days, and to end it with this movie hurt me so much. The idea is it's kind of a reboot slash merger of the first 2 Terminator movies. I like 2 things about this movie. The CG was surprisingly good, and before the movie totally goes to shit, they play out the beginning of the first movie shot for shot, and I really appreciated the attention to detail. And then it totally goes to shit. The first 2 best 2 Terminator movies make it a point to avoid talking about time travel because they understand that time travel is fucking complicated.
Should I tell you about your father? Will it affect your decision to send him here, knowing that he is your father? If you don't send Kyle, you could never be. God, a person could go crazy thinking about this.
Avoid time travel logic and focus on cool story and good characters. Terminator Genisys does the exact opposite of that. They just shove time travel in your face, and they never fucking stop. I swear the writers purposely make time travel as confusing as possible so they can use those plot holes as an excuse for their shitty writing. When you're first introduced in 1984 Sarah Connor, she already knows about the future, she already knows about Judgment Day because somebody already sent Arnold back to protect her when she was 9 years old and raise her as his own child. That's right. The Arnold T-800 Terminator is looked at in this movie as an actual father figure, not just a metaphorical father figure. And to the best of my knowledge, you don't know who sent back that Arnold to Sarah Connor when she was 9. They don't tell you. What the fuck? That enormous change to the entire Terminator continuity is just there. No explanation. And hey, I love me some Daenerys Targaryen, but she is not Linda Hamilton. Don't cast Sarah Connor unless you've got Linda Hamilton. Hey, Kyle Reese is in this movie too. And they got Jai Courtney to play him. Whose fucking idea was that? I'm pretty sure he never even saw Terminator 1 because he acted nothing like Kyle Reese. He actually might just be that bad at acting. We are talking about Jai Courtney here. Also, where the fuck in a post-apocalyptic future do you find the amount of protein to have this fucking body? Are you shitting me? The bad evil Terminator that they send from the future through the past in this movie is John fucking Connor. Horseshit. Not only that, John Connor was sent back 2 years before 2017. Oh, that's right. We jump forward in time to 2017 from 1984 in that movie. John Connor was sent back 2 years before they get to 2017 because he is supposed to save Skynet from them destroying Judgment Day by turning Skynet into an app. Yes, John Connor has been an app developer for the past 2 years, turning Skynet into an app called Genisys, with a Y. And on top of building an app that's gonna become Skynet, he's also building a time machine. A fucking time machine. I hate this movie. I hate this movie so much. A lot of shooting guns happens. They defeat John Connor because they blow his ass up. Arnold Schwarzenegger sacrifices himself. But he doesn't really sacrifice himself because Arnold Schwarzenegger falls into the Terminator molten metal and he becomes a fucking T-1000 on accident. God damn it, I hate this movie so much. I hate it. So that's where we left the franchise. Terminator Genisys. And now James Cameron has come back and they're coming out with a new Terminator movie. I think this one's supposed to scratch out all the movies that took place after Terminator 2, so maybe it'll be good. We got Linda Hamilton back. That's a good thing, right? I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure it'll be bad Terminator chasing good Terminator and the Connors or something. I wish they would just end this franchise. That's the Terminator franchise. Looking back at it, you've got 3 movies that are actually good and 2 movies that aren't. So the good outweighs the bad. So as they keep making movies, I'm sure the bad will outweigh the good. And as they keep producing Terminator movies, I'm going to keep going because I'm an idiot. Keep them coming, I guess. I'll be there. Subscribe!